Well, as you can tell, we are really excited to show you more about graphical programming in LabVIEW NXG. Let's check it out.
Right on, Jen. So here I am on the front panel of my main VI. And you can see that the controls palettes are available on the left side. Now switching over to the block diagram, similarly, the functions palettes are available also on the left side. And my code is following the familiar LabVIEW syntax. Now, I have to admit, I was working on this code right up until this morning, so I just have one more thing to do.
Right. Well, a lot of what Frank is showing will look familiar to existing LabVIEW users. The VI is front and center. And while the panel and diagram have an updated look, they also have a familiar feel.
That's right. So I'm going to go ahead and start running my VI. Now, I'm using a very similar configuration to what Sandra and Jordan did, but this time I'm reading in a configuration file that has channels and maximum temperature limits. So here I'll start the test, start reading in channel data, and I can see we're currently passing the test. Now with the extrapolation control, I can predict what internal temperatures are going to be based off of varying ambient temperatures.
A key goal of LabVIEW NXG is to streamline your development. So instead of carrying forward gestures exactly as is, we rethought some of the most common workflows to optimize your development. For example, when dropping items off of the panel, we collect their corresponding block diagram terminals in a common location so they're easy to find when you're ready to use them. Now, this concept of unplaced items was there in the very early builds of LabVIEW NXG. However, it has moved around a bit over time. Based on usability testing, we've changed the location and behavior to work well for our users' workflows.
That is a lot of changes, Jen.
Yeah, it is. Well, you know, LabVIEW NXG is not only a refresh of a product, it's also a refresh of our development process. When we enhanced the development team to include a new group of experienced software designers, we also enhanced our development practices. We are avid brainstormers who thoroughly explore the solution space before making decisions, and we're also relying heavily on findings from usability testing to guide our refinements.
So speaking about the development process, I remember back when I was a developer, one of the more challenging LabVIEW projects I had was creating the first property node in LabVIEW. And it was growable, and I remember for months struggling with a really annoying wire stretched and broke error. And I didn't know that wires could break in LabVIEW, but apparently they can. So when I got done, the team immediately branded it the ugliest thing in LabVIEW. And I admit, it got the job done, but it didn't really look like anything else at the time.
Right. Well, you know, we love the property node. It has unlocked key functionality for custom test, measurement, and control systems. However, I will admit, Omid, it's not something I'm going to hang on my wall. Now, one thing you may not have considered in those early days is how each function contributed to the code readability. For graphical languages, readability is directly related to layout. So users spend time straightening wires and clustering nodes because it matters.
As each function was added to LabVIEW, it was optimized in isolation. So for example, the property node works well by itself, but it didn't always play nicely with its neighbors, especially in regards to layout. So users wound up relying on a one-pixel layout grid.
In LabVIEW NXG, we had the opportunity to take a step back and design a system that worked for all kinds of content. Ultimately, we arrived at a 5-pixel layout grid to maximize readability.
Adopting a 5-pixel layout grid also means you can spend less time cleaning up your code, meaning you can write clean code faster.
Okay, I like that, cleaner code faster. But Jen, we're just talking about a single diagram here, and as you know, most applications are whole hierarchies of VI, so what have we done there to help the user?
Well, large projects means managing and viewing many files. And LabVIEW's not alone in this need. So we looked for common patterns and conventions in other software for inspiration. Just like a web browser, LabVIEW NXG collects multiple tabs within a single window. We use a unique tab for each VI. But we also know that LabVIEW users often need to see VIs side by side. And according to our customer advisory board, a common scenario is to see 3 to 5 at a time.
Right, so for example, I can have this VI open in its own window that's sized appropriately, and then group other VIs that I'm working on in other windows. So I can drill down the VI hierarchy and debug an issue.
Yeah, so I can see how you reuse these common metaphors from other software people may be familiar with will let new users move to NXG and find a familiar environment.
Right. Well, another place that we've taken inspiration and made it work for LabVIEW is how we handle object properties. Now, this journey started with a dual approach, using a Microsoft Office-style ribbon at the top and a comprehensive property pane on the right. This worked well for a while, but we received feedback that it could be better. So we organized a workshop and design sprint to keep the good while addressing the uncovered gaps. The configuration pane that you see in LabVIEW NXG today is an approachable pattern that scales. We collect common properties into groups, and we order the groups with the most important ones on top. Using progressive disclosure, we reveal details on demand. The configuration pane in LabVIEW NXG is the result of that initial design sprint, plus many refinements since.
So Jen, I can see how, even though LabVIEW NXG should be familiar to existing users, your team has taken pretty bold steps to rethink a lot of interactions so that new users are more productive on the platform as they move over, and existing users are also more productive. So is your team's work done?
Absolutely not. We have a lot more improvements in the pipeline. Stay tuned for those and keep sharing your feedback.
Thank you, Jen. Thank you, Frank.
Thank you. LabVIEW Academy.